NCS.
Game 1.
Fortnite fam, it's the moment we have all been waiting for. The beginning of a long season of FNCS. My name is Levin2K. I am joined this season by the wonderful Takata, and we will be breaking down all the action from this season in EU for you.
The time is now, Levin. The players have been prepping, getting ready, but it's Qualifier 1, Game 1, beginning shortly. I mean, it's really the moment where we get to see what these players have been doing, what have they been planning, the routes, the loot paths, and also the contestations that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, look, we always love to see the off-spawn fights in these games, and I can promise you, the analysts are already breaking a lot of it down. There is plenty all around the map that we will be jumping right into. For me, I'm very excited to see the evolution of some of these teams. Yeah, we have a bunch of new teams, but we have some teams returning to the fray and looking to level up from what we saw last season. It's going to be a fun time for sure. You know, we already talked a bit about our predictions, but there are still plenty of other players on the map who will be looking to prove many of us wrong. So let's just hop right in.
The battle bus is ready, the engine is started, and these players are going to begin dropping in now. The question is, who is going to be able to have that dominance in the first match? It's so important to kind of showcase what you're capable of against your opponents here. We have teams being contested all over the map, but we're going to be looking specifically at the Daily Bugle here as Astro is actually going to get some nice tags with his burst assault rifle right off the start.
Yeah, I just want to just point out, right, it seems to be the return of UK Fortnite, right? UK Fortnite is back in. We have Astro and Michael, of course, over here. We have Wolfies landing with Asa. Asa isn't actually from the UK, but nevertheless, I'm still going to stick with it. And the battle at the Daily Bugle will be one to follow for sure. Michael and Astro are a very experienced team at this POI. They've been landing here basically all of Chapter 3, and so they know how to deal with it. A team that definitely knows how to deal with their off-spawn battles. Vortex and High Chris taking down Hydro and Belusi here. This was one the analysts sort of gave us some insight into, but the battle's not done. You can see DKS and Deciptos up on the hill, ready to strike.
Ready to strike, but another player that's ready to strike here, it's Nebs, as they do have the player advantage. Nebs now with one elimination alongside Marine, looking to see if they can finish this off. I believe they're all up against Noah Riley here, so this is going to be interesting.
The interesting thing, right, is that the longer this fight takes, the more opportunity and time the Greasy Grove team has to come in third part. And you can see in the distance Nipsey and Coop coming in and getting involved. And so we're going to see things wrap up very shortly. You can see in this replay, Nebs off-spawn initially picking up that Stinger SMG and absolutely dealing with Reason. And so I'm sure Reese said, look, it's going to be maybe 4-2. They're going to be the ones to win out of here. We'll see whether that trend continues, but in the meantime, it does seem like Nebs and Marine are in favor.
Nebs trying to find an angle on Noah, but if you look at the bottom right on the minimap, there is a duo. It's the duo from Greasy that are coming close here. So this could be dangerous for the duo as Nebs getting straight into the action, going to the box of his opponent, Noah Rayleigh, but unable to connect the big shot yet. And you can see now the third party has gotten closer and closer, and it's just gotten that much more risky.
Yeah, this fight concludes. Nebs and Marine will be your victors, obviously one of the newer teams this season, but they will be well aware of the threat posed by Coop and Nipsey. I spoke to Marine just before the competition started today, and he said, yep, we know. The Greasy team are going to push us. They're going to take the grapple gloves and look to try third party us, and that's exactly what's happening in Game 1, so they should be ready for it. And nevertheless, a bit of a stalemate now, no immediate action, but this is going to be something for everyone at home to be following throughout the day. Will that continue to play out? Will Nebs and Marine even win that fight against Noah Riley and Vidil, or Noah Riley and Reason again today?
Ooh, switching over though to the center of the map by Loot Lake here. Merstash Malibuka that land on the east side here where the Collider used to be by Loot Lake, and they've gotten into a quick engagement here. Actually going to knock down one now, giving them the player advantage, but they have to be careful as the third party's coming in. Merstash is down to just 1 or 2 HP to work with, but Padnata now playing it out as a solo, trying to decide what the strategy is here. Malibuka has lost Merstash. Now it's 2 solos going head-to-head at the third party. Lays down shots. Malibuka, though, has the advantage here. Just has to connect one quick shot, but doesn't even need to as the opponents take him out.
Yeah, Uguay being the one to take that elimination away from Malibuka over from the distance. And I know Reese was talking about this earlier in the show, but it is just so ironic that Malibuka Mustache, a team that is just so dominant in those later phases of the game, just don't seem to be able to have things locked down when it comes to off-spawn battles. They are shaky there. That is the weakest aspect of their game. Their drops at this area, Loot Lake, aren't necessarily the greatest. And so I think we're going to continue to see this sort of throughout the day where Uguay and Tayson are constantly looking to third-party that fight.
I mean, that's going to be the best thing they can do, right? Starting off so strong with a third party picking up an elimination is kind of going to set them up for what they're going to do the rest of the day, having that uncontested north side of Loot Lake. The only thing is, what are their opponents going to do? What's Murstache and Malibuka going to change to not get put into this situation again? I mean, if there's something they can do, as if they do keep getting into this engagement, I mean, it's going to be incredible for Uguay and Tayson having that free damage every game. But going back to Reality Falls, we have Vortex, hi Chris, back into another engagement, already with 2 eliminations, but looking to up that counter, make it 4. Hi Chris, continuing to look for an angle here, seeing if he can connect something. He has a good amount of loot, has a decent amount of materials, but the question is, does he need these eliminations? Do they want to take this engagement? Or would it be more worth it to just disengage and get the rotate on, as the zone has appeared a bit further away, so they will have to make a rotate. And now they're just using more and more time, but they know this is High Chris. Gets an amazing edit, getting the shot onto his opponent, cracking him down, getting that elimination for Vortex, and now they do have the player advantage, but be careful, the third party is coming in.
Well, for the people watching at home, there's so much going on in this game. Of course, the lobby starts with so many players, and we can't possibly keep up with it all. So we are joined by the wonderful Mini Miner to give us a nice in-game update on actually Hen and Mr. Savage in this game.
Thank you so much, Levin. Now, we saw Murstache and Malibuka fighting just outside of their drop spot. So many teams looking to capitalize on that for surge tags. Hen being one of them, particularly when you're uncontested like Hen and Savage are at Tilted Towers. They need to use these surge tags as opportunities right off the rip. They're looking for those tags. They're building up as high as they can and trying to get that damage done early, which is so important for this team. So make sure to look out for them later on when they're above the surge.
Thank you so much, Mini Miner, and I love that, Levin. It's correct, right? When you have a POI, a point of interest, like Tilted Towers, uncontested, I'm not worried about loot. I'm not worried about materials. What I'm worried about in that situation is getting enough damage for Storm Surge and being able to rotate to the position you want to be at as quickly as possible. So seeing that they have the opportunity to get those tags, I mean, it's looking good for Mr. Savage and Hen.
Yeah, of course, there's going to be many people who may be watching the FNCS or high level competitive Fortnite lobby for the first time. And for the people who don't necessarily know what Storm Surge is, essentially Storm Surge is a sort of feature mechanic in the game that means that players in the lobby have to deal a certain amount of damage to stay above a certain threshold. And that threshold will very much determine who stays in the game, right? If you are below that damage threshold, the lobby begins to deal damage to players until the lobby reaches a certain player limit. And so throughout the day, we'll constantly be updating you on those players and how they fare when it comes to the Storm Surge leaderboard per se. And so, yeah, we'll certainly have to watch out for whether or not Hen and Mr. Savage can be high on that surge. But this is something that's going to be very good to see for Floki and Clement, the team that actually won round 3 of this first qualifier, coming into round 4 looking incredibly hot and very much so looking to deal with their surge, as you see, just taking shots at players, looking for good positions to get some free damage, basically, on players rotating all around the map.
It's all about having that high elevation. If you're elevated on a hill, on a building, on something that gives you a wide area of vision to go for those tags, it's crucial to get damage without risking too much. You can take engagements like we saw Vortex and his duo do in Reality Falls, but it's a little risky. You use more materials, use more shields, and you could end up getting eliminated. So being able to get those tags from afar is almost the best way to do it, but the difficulty is getting yourself in one of those positions quickly enough. As we switch over to hard find and ADN here, who seem to be doing a bit of a late rotate. They are in the Logjam Lotus here, cruising around, flying around, drifting through the wind as they kind of decide what's the rotate gonna be.
Of course, Queasy and Joe's dog here on our screens. Very much a team to watch out for in all of the FNCS this season. One of the biggest favorites to win it all, and to be able to say that about a team so early into the competition just lets you know how strong they are. and how highly they are regarded. Of course, the zone pulling towards that east means that they do have a distance to go. But I can assure you, when it comes to making rotational decisions, Queasy does not struggle in that regard.
That zone that we just saw as well, for me, Levin, it's looking pretty dangerous. A majority of the southern side of the zone is water, with a little bit of islands here and there. North side, you have the Daily Bugle. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for a dangerous zone here. So if I was these duos, I'd start thinking ahead, seeing what the game plan is going to be and see if they can get that rotation quickly, especially if you don't have an item like the grapple glove. But fortunately enough for Mr. Savage, he is going to have that grapple glove, the only mobility item currently in the game. There is a lot of that natural environmental mobility. However, for items, it's just the grapple glove. So if you have that, I mean, you can rotate a little later if you want, take a bit of time, but saving them for the end game is what's important. As we switch over to default here, and Stormy Right in the Jonesies, trying to take some shots on some duos that are rotating in a bit late.
Yeah, taking some shots over towards Kiduo and Yusri. Yusri hitting back hard right there. That's actually a duo that's newly formed as well. We'll try and highlight all of those newer formed duos, right? There are a bunch of them in the lobby. Of course, Default and Stormy Right, I think one of the more interesting things to note about this team on our screens is that Stormy Right is an FNCS champion. Many people forget it. It does feel like after their victory in the FNCS last year, their performances start to maybe go a bit downhill. And last season, we didn't really see him in the FNCS at all. And so to see him now here with Default in the first round 4 of the season is a very positive note.
And if you want to learn more about the veterans of Fortnite competitive, you can check out some of the stories on FN Comp Official. The new Fortnite competitive Instagram page has some nice interviews with some veteran players of Fortnite competitive. So you can learn all about the backstories, training routines, what they do to prepare for a tournament like this, where so much is on the line. But getting back into the game here, 11 talked about it. Storm Surge now with 77 players up is going to get possibly activated here as the zone comes to a close. So these players now have 1 minute and 40 seconds to get that damage or continue with the amount they have. As right now, the duo on the screen, 303 above, but switching over to Chicho and Trulex, 20 below, they have to get a bit of tags.
Yeah, 20 below is not a good spot to be at for this team. A very established team, a team that has a very consistent early to mid game on most occasions. And this is how they do it. Of course, Trulex, a very experienced veteran IGL in the game, someone who's won an FNCS. Chico, a younger, newer Serbian player who's recently sort of burst onto the scene, but he is talented. And his ability to hit shots on players will come in clutch for them throughout the remainder of the game. Someone who's no stranger to hitting big shots. Wolfies, of course, Wolf God on our screens here, playing alongside Acid this season. They've survived the battle at the Bugle. I think they disengaged from that POI. But of course, seeing Wolfies back in the FNCS picture is a huge thing. Of course, second place in the World Cup way long time ago. And now looking to try and competitive Fortnite, but he'll have to deal with his Storm Surge damage if he wants any chance of doing that. Of course, Zohan and Splashy going to make that very difficult for them sitting up above.
Zohan and Splashy, though, they also need that damage. I mean, the above by 25 damage, but that can quickly turn around for the worst is now 41 above. They want to look for an angle here, look for a connection shot from that striker pump. We can do a good amount of damage in just one shot, but you have to connect it correctly, as now they're both taking shots back and forth, looking for angles, looking for connections through the builds. As Asa right now looking to see if he can make something happen. Might play a little bit more aggressive, but I don't think that the end goal for these duos is to get eliminations. It's more just get above that damage threshold to not get taken out by the Storm Surge.
Yeah, and this is the biggest worry I think many people would have had for Wolfies and Asa. The fact that, although they maybe pack a punch here and there, do they have the nous to deal with their Storm Surge in efficient ways? Of course, now they are above that threshold and it has reached 70 players and now just below that. And so the Surge will stop ticking for the meantime, but very much it's not left them in the greatest of positions. Asa with just 18 builds, not the greatest loadouts, no spare shields. This is shambles. That is what we mean when it comes to shambles in these kind of lobbies. They do not have much to work with whatsoever.
Now looking back at Tayson and Uguay, the favorites for the analyst desk here in today's tournament, currently looking great. I mean, they have a good amount of loot, have the shields, have even the damage done, but now it's all about that positioning. Where are they going to place themselves on this map as the zone is getting more and more risky now? A majority of the zone being in this kind of watery island area. You can even see Mr. Savage now decides to take a swim. It's going to be a bit hot outside, wants to wash off, get clean, but that can quickly get a bit dangerous as the players that are already in the zone are looking back right now and they want that damage.
Yeah, you can see just how much they're trying to greed their way in, not wanting to use too many of the materials and or charges of their grapple gloves, but they will be forced to get to the Monument Island. And now that they are here, the opportunity to hold teams, you can see Hen looking back towards High Crest, seeing if he can get some shots off. Nevertheless, though, they will now use the Monument statue to glide their way into zone. And we'll see what position they take up. That will be huge for how the rest of the game goes for them. Trippin and Thomas, a team who we haven't necessarily seen much of in this game, but a team who we will definitely see much more of across today's games. One that very much should be high up in those standings out of Rave Cave.
I got kind of scared there, Levin, when I saw so many duos flying, using that sort of wind tunnel at the Monument to rotate into zone. I mean, there was so many duos already boxed up, looking back, taking shots, but luckily enough, I don't believe any of them got eliminated. Just a bit of shield taken out. But looking at Thomas and Tripper in here, positioned well, kind of waiting for the zone to appear, thinking what their rotate could be, what the strategy could be for this next zone. But Kiddo has a good amount of vision, a little bit higher up. Sometimes you want to use a bit extra materials just so you have that extra vision and you can see kind of your surroundings better, where your opponents are, what locations are more free to rotate through, more open. It's really all about that vision and thinking ahead of time as we switch over to Joe's Dog and Queasy.
Look at just how many players are congested in this area. If you look at the bottom right, the little mini-map, there's so many little arrows. When the time comes to rotate, they should be all right. But we definitely cannot say the same for some of the teams around them. And maybe they are aware of that and realize that there are some opportunities for eliminations and refreshes when possible. But this is going to be a very crazy rotation for a lot of these players who are going to have to traverse across the oceans, the rivers. It becomes very difficult. But if you're one of those players that is in the safe zone and on a higher elevated layer like Floki and Clement, the opportunity to look at these players swimming their way on in is a great chance to try and get some eliminations maybe. And you're seeing that right here on Floki's screen.
What I can't wait to see, Levin, is those moving zones, zone 6, 7, when the players are going to have to rotate through this interesting environmental side of the map here where they have to swim, maybe even build over the water, or really do some rotations that they might not be too used to. As we look at Malibuka and Murstache, who are kind of stuck on the edge of zone here in an incredibly dangerous position, running out of mats quickly. One shot left for Malibuka, ultimately going to go down now. Murstache playing as a solo. They were forced to rotate late, and due to that, all the duos that are already based up in zone were just staring at them, taking shots, laying down the rain from above, and now Murstache is forced to play it out as a solo.
Yeah, their game went off the rails and they were never really able to recover. You can see with just 7 builds, there isn't really much Moustache can do. He's going to try and harpoon some loot over in towards him. The materials will be the most important thing, but with such low HP, he's just got to be so careful about how he goes about it. Pickle on our screen here, really as well in a similar situation to Moustache, where it just doesn't have much to work with. No longer has Melda, his teammate, by his side. And so with 123 below Surge, not many materials, enough to maybe keep him by. This is just such a difficult position to be in as a solo. And it isn't a position he'll be in for much longer. Taken out rather swiftly as well. But the game continues for the rest of our teams.
Fifth zone has appeared now on the southern side of the map here.
Nobody's in it.
Literally.
Nobody's in zone.
I was going to say a majority of the players are north, but it's not a majority. It's every single player is outside of this fifth zone. So the rotations for this half in, half out is going to be incredibly difficult. Might even be better to wait a little bit.
Is not necessarily have the games or the kind of games you'd expect to see, right? The likes of Malibuka, Mustache going down in an unfortunate manner. Can they have a bounce back? Will Hydro and Belusi get the one up over Chris and Vortex in this game? We'll see based off of this off-spawn fight. Hydro and Chris fighting it out. The pickaxe battle. Who will get the weapon? It's not going to be Chris this time. And so Hydro will win the fight. Belusi by his side. And this maybe is their chance now to dethrone that first place team. Everybody in the lobby will be happy to see Chris go down. It's all about whether or not Vortex can come back later, pick his teammate up, and get them back in the game. But for the meantime, it will be Belusi and Hydro dominant here.
From the victory royale to getting eliminated off spawn, it really just shows the danger of being contested in an early game drop like this, especially if it's a 50-50. If you're playing for that chest, whoever has the quickest reactions to get that loot, get those early game eliminations, I mean, it's really what's important. But looking now along the center of the map, remember, Tace and Uguay are here. Malibuka, Mustache are also close by, getting into early game engagements and third parties. So we have to be careful to see how these players play it out.
Yeah, of course, Hydro and Belusi, they won the first battle here at Reality Falls, but you can see there on the screen, the Siptos and DKS are still lurking about. And so there is potential for another engagement to take place over here. And the big thing for Hydro and Belusi now, though, is the fact that they have one off spawn. What can you do? How can you take advantage of this opportunity? You're not guaranteed to play every game. If ADN and Hardfine are hitting shots like that, they will be guaranteed to play every game. A brilliant shot there from Aiden. And of course, I always try to throw it in and mention it, but being from the UK, it's always good to see the UK boys coming out strong. Of course, Astro and Michael started off the day really well as well, sitting in second place. We'll see what they can cook up. Of course, very comfortable here at the Bugle. And so no strangers to some of the teams that will be looking to fight out here. It's just all about keeping your composure and winning out the fight.
Just take a look at the mini-map at the bottom right there at the Daily Bugle. I mean, this is a dangerous place to take an engagement with players on the hillside there looking for shots with multiple duos in the buildings. I mean, any engagement that happens here, especially if you're the first one to take it, you have the danger, not just of the third party, but the fourth party and possibly the fifth party. Make it a whole frenzy as now we go over to Logjam Lotus. This is one of the dynamic POIs this season. There is two Butterbloom on the southern side of the map and Logjam Lotus here on the northern side as Irazumi going in with the advantage, getting his shots hit as he takes down Cherry now in a 1 versus 2 with his duo partner. Are they going to be able to get that clean sweep?
Yeah, we'll see what Relvis and Irazumi can do. Another duo that is fresh, new this season. And so we'll see what they got cooking. So far, it's looking delicious, though. Of course, they do need to get the job finished, but the priority is always to just secure that first elimination and see where you go from there. Pink, though, clutching up in this fight against Banwise and Q-Roll. And I'm happy to see this fight will go in their favor. They actually did fight Q-Roll and Banwise a lot throughout the qualifying rounds before this one. A couple times during round 3, I'm sure a couple times during round 2 and 1 as well. But this time, Pink and Anas will be victorious. And the great thing about this is that they actually have the grapple gloves this game. That's going to be one of the keys for them. Speaking to them, they very much want to take this fight against Q-Roll and Banwise to make sure that they let the rest of the lobby and anybody in their general area know that we will fight for the grapple gloves. That's how much we want it.
What's interesting is early game engagements are so risky, so dangerous, but you see so many top tier duos playing for those early game engagements in this current meta where it's the only item that grants you that mobility.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the things that have been going on all around. Belusi, we saw them have such a great start to the game, but Nafrizi coming in and absolutely putting that in the mud with a brilliant couple of shots there. And so another game where Hydra and Belusi maybe going to have to just get back to the drawing board or figure things out in a different way. The Freezer and Lusher, though, looking really good.
Continuing their loop path here. You can see on the minimap there's nobody close by. Only thing they should be considering is that zone, how far they have to rotate. But having a free loop path is amazing, especially if you already have the damage done. But looking at a duo that might have to get that damage coming from the uncontested tilted towers. It's Mr. Savage and Hen. Great performance in round 3. Looking to do the same here in round 4 as they are with the high ground elevation here, the advantageous position, looking for shots, looking for damage, as they have only a few options close by. But looking back at Thomas and Tripperin, they're doing just the same thing. It's all about getting that damage from afar, not putting yourself in a risky position, and getting the tags with that burst assault rifle or whatever you got.
Yeah, and you'll see, right? Tripperin and Thomas are both being a bit overzealous with the angles, right? You might be thinking, hold on a minute, you know, why are they being a bit so risky? They're opening themselves up for maybe a bit too long. They're fine with doing that, right? Because they have a couple spare shields. You saw there was a big pot in the reserve spare for Thomas HD there, right? So they're willing to just look for some bloom fights, some trades, just to make sure that they have their surge damage up. Plus, they're very confident that they will hit their shots when necessary. And so very much so a team that should hopefully be looking a lot stronger on Surge this game. Queasy and Benno, very much a team to be excited for as we move forward. An interesting game 1. They went for high earlier on, weren't able to hold on to it. But very much a team we will see looking for height over and over again throughout the day. Kiduo and U-Street also were very impressive, right? We saw them on some of their mid and lower layers, wiping teams out. And that's going to be their goal again here today.
The question is if they can keep that consistency for the rest of the matches today. 5 more to be played out as Kiduo gets some tags from afar. Has to be careful as he goes onto the bridge, gets a bit of cover. But his duo partner is also going to take that damage.
That's always going to be one of the risks, right, of, you know, rifting in like that. As you're in the sky, we got some top competitive players in these lobbies. Stay in the sky for a bit too long and you will take some damage. It is inevitable. Naughty, though, and Eclipse taking a lot of damage here. Naughty in particular, not looking too hot. They do have some shields, and a med mist will be able to get him back up. I'd expect Eclipse to start med misting his teammate there to get their HP up. Yep, he will start to do it. But yeah, not a comfortable situation to be in. It is for Rifty and Flodax, because they'll be happy with the amount of damage they were able to deal there.
What you can see, though, is kind of the differences from round 3s and round 4s. When these players get so much damage onto an opponent, cracking them, bringing them down to maybe 50 total effective HP, they don't push, because what they really want is damage for that Storm Surge. It shows how important it is in these stacked lobbies just to get that damage. You don't have to risk it for those eliminations, even if you have the advantage. As long as you're able to get the damage, get your loot, get your materials, and rotate early, you're setting yourself up for the late game, and that's where you're going to get the most points.
Yeah, for sure. A very important part of the game. We're seeing now a fresher team, a newer team to the lobby. Kojeni, Pesha, or Peshka, looking now to get their way in. And like I talked about earlier, when you're guiding in like that, it's always going to be a big risk. And for Kojeni, it might be a risk that wasn't worth taking. So low on HP, the reinforced wall will come in and add that extra layer of protection, that extra time to heal himself up. But yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. They've got a distance to go and a couple teams in their general area. Of course, with the grapple gloves, it will mean that they are able to maybe cheat the system a little bit, right? Get ahead of these teams if they are willing to use a couple charges.
But I want to learn a bit about loot. So we've got Mini Miner ready to teach us about it.
Thank you so much to Carlton. Now we're looking at Vino, aka Joe's Dog, and Queasy separate from each other when looting, particularly when it comes down to Storm Surge positioning. With Shifty Shaft, there's so many hills around the area. So what we're seeing is Queasy up on the main hill and Joe's Dog just rotating to the one to the south. Allows them to be a little bit more separate when they're going for those tags and get even more Storm Surge tags later on.
It's funny, right? Because when you look at some of the games from round 3, because of the nature of the grapple gloves. There were so many teams that were contesting them at Shifty Shafts in those previous rounds. But this is a top team, and so when it comes to round 4, they get the respect. People know not to mess with them and come in that area, which gives them that extra freedom and space to sort of split the way that they do. And I will expect that to continue if they were to make that to a round, or not a round 4, sorry, to an FNCS final, because they're not a team you want to deal with off spawn, especially, you know, we've seen him be successful in those sort of situations in the past. Floki and Clement, a team that won't have to fight off spawn much today, unlike usual, and doing well to now actually get ahead of these teams, right? This is a team that lands basically the furthest south of anybody on the map, but yet you can see them making sure they're getting past some of these teams. They want to be the team that can hold people in the zone and look back towards them, getting some free damage or eliminations, and so prioritizing getting to the zone ahead of anything else.
Switching over, cheating here, 242 above the Storm Surge threshold, looking good. But is the positioning looking good? As you can see, maybe they're trying to get onto a hill there, but switching quickly over to an engagement. We have Astro, we have Michael showing that aggression is dominant here as they're getting straight into the face of their opponents. Already taken down 1 now, looking to make it 2 as they secure that finish. And Michael now is split, even cracked. They should probably play it a bit safe here, regroup up, shield up, and then take the engagement.
Yeah, that was really nice for them. To get that elimination there is huge. You saw, though, for a moment, it did almost just sort of split up, right? Michael maybe getting a bit too excited. It's important that they stay, keep a level head, because right now things are setting up real nice for them to have another really good game. They have been one of the more aggressive teams so far, picking up a bunch of eliminations, and I hope to see that trend continue. For Asa and Wolf God, will that trend continue for them? Will they be able to start picking up some eliminations? We saw Norksy and Eclipse taking a bunch of damage before at the hands of Rifty and Flodax. Now, though, it's Asa and Wolf God who are maybe looking to do that, but they do have to get into the zone. You're seeing now trying to slide their way in. There are players looking at them, and this is some of the risks that comes with being late to rotate in. You have these teams who will look at you, and so you have to spend your materials to secure your safety, and the med mist will have to come in as well to make sure his HP isn't too low for when he takes some damage.
And it's not the ideal part of the match where you want to be using your med mist. You want to save that for the late game. But when you don't have materials and you have to get a different position, put yourself into storm. But due to rotating late, they're going to have to use their med mist, like you were saying, Levin, the materials. And overall, they're going to need a refresh sooner than most of the opponents. But now Joe's dog, Queasy, looking for those tags. Great job of getting that early high ground positioning in their POI. They have to be careful here. They don't want to lose too much shield, but switching over quickly to Bruchawa. 89 below, has to get the damage done, has to look for something here.
Yeah, they are going to be desperate. And Cheating and Gripey should be aware of that. And it'll be interesting to see how they approach the fight, knowing that Pachawa and Chari are desperate to take it. I don't necessarily think that they are down below Surge, and so they aren't desperate. But maybe this will also be an opportunity for them to pick up some easy free eliminations if they play things right. But that is all in the hands of Cheating and Gripey. And now the engagement is being forced, and Cheating does such a brilliant job. A huge shotgun shot connects. And that's a nice little pair of eliminations for this duo. And that could set them up nicely as we move forward in the game. Another team, another player down below on Surge. It's the story that we will tell so many times. And ultimately a story that doesn't really end on a happy note for most of these teams. It usually ends with you going back to the lobby just like that. Krusty and Paco will profit from that player. What can Astro do? A nice shotgun shot there from Astro. He's making it look easy right now. Focused as ever. The knock eventually comes, and they will be able to collect the body as well, but they now have to focus on getting to zone.
Astro taking out Astrox. Now with 4 total eliminations, that's an extra 8 points without even getting to the late game necessarily yet, but now the rotate has to come in. They do have duos close by. Fortunately enough, it seems like those duos are quickly turning into solos, so they will have that freedom, that dominance as they rotate, but what's most important here is not getting knocked. If you're with your duo partner here and either Astro or Michael gets knocked, it's going to be very difficult to pick them back up, especially with all the duos you can see on the north side of that mini-map at the bottom right. There's so many positioned, looking back at them, going for the tags, going for the damage, stopping them from getting the rotate in. So you really have to be careful on which engagements you take, as Thomas and Trip are in now, trying to get more of a high ground position here on the Shifty Shafts hill. You can already see how many duos are positioned on this side of the map.
Yeah, and for Thomas and Trippin, I'm sure they would like to maybe go a bit more central, but there's no need to grieve for it. If they were to sort of continue to push forward, it could risk them using a lot more materials and HP than needed. And so they'll settle for their position, knowing that they have the grapple glove to get them into the next zone when needed. But yeah, you can see just so many players all sort of forced to stick along the zone line. Michael and Astro actually go down, which is interesting. We saw them looking so good, but in the elimination feed, they will fall. Who will be next to join them, though? A couple players seeming to go in that direction.
I mean, sometimes it's a little too risky to go for those extra eliminations when the rotate has to be made. If the zone's closing, those 2 eliminations, those 4 points are not worth the possible positioning you could get for rotating early, which is what might have happened to Astro and Michael there, as we saw they were getting held. But now 4th zone has appeared. It's a nice position to get that high ground early if you're able to, but Peshka King here is looking for the aggression, looking for the elimination. 0 eliminations on the board, but also 0 shields. They have that mobility with the grapple glove, but is it really worth it to use it? If you get tagged, you can't recuperate those shields, so they have to be careful on the decisions they take here. There's so many duos close by. Playing aggressive can be incredibly dangerous here.
Yeah, they're going to have to look to set up for a refresh at some point, right? Maybe a pre-edit play will be the option they look for. That could be the solution, but it doesn't really seem like there's many around them. There is obviously that team above, but no easy answer to some of their problems, and that being they're not looking too hot when it comes to materials and loot. And that is going to be something that has to change in order for them to have a shot at winning this game. But Mr. Savage and Hen, can they keep their cool? We saw last game they made it far, but not far as they would have wanted to. Again, I reiterate, the key for this team is to play together. What can they do as a team, not as individuals? We know how great Mr. Savage is as a solo. We know how great Hen is as a solo. But they must join forces together and be on the same page if they have any hope of being a successful duo in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, that's the most difficult thing, right? Especially with a newly formed duo like Mr. Savage and Hen. You have to build that synergy up so quickly when some of your opponents have had a lot more time to build that synergy. But you put in the time, put in the effort to make anything happen. As Peshka King here now gets unfortunately taken out by the duo that was prepared for the engagement. And that was Mr. Savage and Hen, showing that playing a bit sneaky, crouched up, waiting for your opponents to strike can be the correct play, as they annihilated both players there. But you can see Yursri as well now, 195 above, but they have to be careful because they're on the corner of that zone. They don't want to get held, especially seeing that in 5 seconds, the 5th zone, half and half, is going to appear. And it's very possible that they have to rotate, but also at the same time, it's possible that they pull zone. It's pulled to the west side of Shifty Shafts here. Some players are in, but a majority are out. And now the rotates are going to have to come in.
Yeah, and for Yushri and Kiduo, this is a nice zone for them, right? They won't have much issue getting in. They may even be able to look to get in early. There are some builds and some trees here around them that will block the lines of sight. And so they're actually looking not too bad when it comes to how to get to the next zone. For the rest of the lobby and for some of the other players, though, it isn't looking as good for Tayson and Uguay here on our screens. They're not too far away from the zone. And so knowing that they can get in at ease, they very much can sit here and look and try and take shots at some of the players who do have to get in ahead of them. The elevation is a bit awkward, of course. Thomas and Trippin sort of blocking their way, and there is a hill sort of above them, so that we'll see what they can do. But again, another nice setting up game for them. For Trippin and Thomas, though, it looks like they're going to use the grapplers to try and find a more secure position in the zone.
The grapple gloves start coming out
horrendously. And for them to have a resurgence like this come so alive when it matters most, that I think is the true shining or showcasing of players with a lot of experience and just a lot of confidence in their own gameplay.
That's right. We got to take a look at the standings. So we did watch a duo fall out Look at that, Kiduo and Yusuri. Now, it's okay. It's okay that they did not make top 5. Remember, we have a secondary leaderboard, the series point leaderboard. As long as they continue to do well, we will see them competing in finals. But this is our top 5 going through. My goodness.
Wow.
And of course, I mean, look, Tayson fam, sound off. You guys can, go ahead. Yeah, I know. All right.
I'm gonna
Anyway.
do the Tayson pose for a second. I think that's all that needs to be said.
Okay, there you go. Trulex and Chico, Queasy and Joe's Dog, Murstache and Malabuka and Cheatin and Gripey show up here and they make it into the top 5. Just a phenomenal set of 6 games. I mean, once again, you just can't predict this stuff, man. You think you know, and the players are just like, hey, you want a cool game? You want to be entertained? We got you.
Yeah, absolutely. Realistically, the men on top of the lobby right now, Tayson and Uguay, 201 points. They've been the stars of the show today.
Yeah.
And we basically summed up at the top of the show for this exact reason. Like, they've been so good at the start of the season already in the cash cups and everything. They've been putting the time. They've been practicing, and it's showing. I genuinely believe that we haven't seen the best Tayson in team modes yet. I think we've seen him in solos when it comes to a lot of solos before. But I genuinely believe we will, if he keeps us up, be unstoppable this season.
I think in matches 5 and 6 especially, we really started to see a lot of that cohesion coming through for Tayson and Uguay. It just felt as though they were working one after the other, so in sync when they were taking a lot of these challenges throughout those closing and moving circles. And that's not an easy feat. There is so much pressure riding on a lot of these instances, but for players like Tayson and Uguay, I mean, we talk about consistency all the time, and this is the reason why. It's because they were consistently putting up elans, consistently making it into those final circles. And it's just tough, I think, to try and dethrone them at that point.
And I think like the one main consistency that I like about them is the way they always take high. It's always the same. Always pinch from either side of the zone coming up.
Perfect timing.
Chapix always at the backside. Tayson always at the front. Every single time it's the same. Every time they take height, it's the exact same thing for them. So to see them do that 2 of the 6 games today and do super well in them, amazing.
Super impressive. Let's go ahead and join our in-game team as we prepare to wrap up the day. My goodness, we got to talk through our predictions. Of course, some of you guys are right. I was wrong. It's fine. Just got to spread the love as it is. How do we feel the day has gone overall?
Amazing.
Okay.
Amazingly. It's gone great, Zeke.
That's good. Okay, could you elaborate?
I won.
We won.
We
Sorry.
won.
What was that number 1? Not gonna happen, Zeke. You're blurring out a little bit for me. Is there? Well,
Look,
This is what I get.
Zeke,
revisit.
when I give you a certified 11 guarantee that a team is going to qual, they're going to qual. You just got to listen to me, bruv.
I just need that before we start the show so I can get my prediction.
Yeah.
He copies. He does.
What do you think, Takada?
Look, Joe's Dog and Queasy, they started off strong. They finished not so strong, but in the 3rd place spot, they're happy, and this is just the beginning, right? These 5 duos in the top 5 are going to be going directly to the finals, so I'm sure they'll have time to practice now. They'll have time to improve and adapt from their mistakes made today, and in the finals, Joe's Dog and Queasy are going to outperform Tayson, so.
Ooh, okay, big calls. But I agree, because I chose them too. And it was the right choice, of course. We had a few questions maybe asked about their chemistry. Is it going to be a little bit difficult for them to vibe out together? And of course, Zeke had a few questions to ask about the sort of solidity of my predictions, might I add, earlier on in the show. And now we have proven to be on top, me and Takata, and Zeke has fallen short yet again.
That's what I get for trying to be the good guy. It happens.
Sorry.
Well, that is pretty much it for the competition. Camera, come over here. Just get them out of here. That is it for at least qualifier number 1 in Europe. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget NA East, not that far away. Another 6 games there. And of course, we're back next week, Friday and Sunday for qualifiers 2 and 3. We love you guys. Keep yourself safe. And as always, we'll see you on the battle bus.
Beep, 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 beep.
Always in my shot.
I got to get in.